Hi everyone. In this video, we introduce SURD, the Synergistic-Unique-Redundant decomposition of causality. SURD is a new method based on information theory that quantifies causality as increments of information gained about a target variable from a set of causes. This approach is non-intrusive. It doesn't require any manipulations of the system and the investigation. All it needs are observations of the relevant variables, which makes it suitable for both computational and experimental investigations. In our publication in Nature Communications, where we present SURD, we benchmark SURD against other state-of-the-art causal inference methods across diverse scenarios. However, today, we'll focus on the foundational aspects of how SURD calculates and breaks down causality among different causes and effects. The input of SURD is a set of time-varying observations. Consider a collection of n time-dependent variables represented by the vector q. These variables could range from climatological measurements, like temperature and pressure, to biological data, such as human heart rate, or the evolution of a species in an ecosystem. Our objective with SURD is clear. We aim to quantify the causality from components of q at a given time t to components at a future time t plus delta t. This means we are looking at how changes in our variables at one time instant lead to changes at another later time instant. For example, in the graph below, you see time series data for three variables over time. Using SURD, we can analyze this data to understand how source variables in blue influence the target variable in red over the interval delta t. To quantify this causality, SURD is rooted in two main ideas. The first idea is our definition of causality. We define causality in terms of the increase in information we can gain about future states of a system, denoted as Q+, by observing individual components or groups of components from the vector of observed variables Q. Here, information is quantified using the concept of Shannon entropy, which measures the uncertainty or surprise in a given variable. The second core principle of SURD is the forward-in-time preparation of information. This principle asserts that any information about the future state of a variable must stem from the information coming from past observations of the set of observed variables and from any hidden variables that might be influencing the system but are not included in the analysis. This ensures that causes always precede their effects. The first step of SURD is to quantify the information of the target variable Qj+. To that end, we use the framework of information theory to quantify information through the Shannon entropy, which measures the uncertainty of a given variable. In other words, Shannon entropy quantifies the average number of bits needed to unambiguously determine the states of Qj+. Mathematically, it can be expressed as the expected value of the logarithm of the probability distribution of the target variable Qj+. Then, we use the principle of forward-in-time propagation of information to decompose the information in the target variable into contributions from past observed variables and hidden variables not considered in the analysis. The information from observed variables is further broken down into three components: synergistic, unique, and redundant causalities. Let's now explore these components using an example where the vector of observed variables consists of two variables, q1 and q2, and the target variable is qj+. The first component is the redundant causality, which quantifies the causality about the target variable that is common to a group of variables. In our example, redundant causality is shown in blue and represents the causality that is common to both q1 and q2 about the target variable. Next, we have the unique causality, which quantifies the causality about the target variable that cannot be obtained from any other individual variable. In our diagram, this causality is shown in pink and represents the causality that is unique to Q1 and Q2 about the target variable. Then, we have the synergistic causality, which quantifies the causality about the target variable arising from the joint effect of variables. In our diagram, this type of causality is shown in yellow and represents the causality about the target variable arising from the combined effect of Q1 and Q2, which cannot be obtained when those variables are considered separately. And finally, we have the causality leak, which is the causality about the target variable coming from unobserved variables. That is, variables that are not included in the vector of observed variables Q. In our diagram, this type of causality is shown in gray and represents the causality coming from variables different to Q1 and Q2 that influence the target variable. The next question is, how do we decompose the information of the target variable into its various causal components? We achieve this using the concept of specific mutual information. For each of the possible states of the target variable, we calculate the specific mutual information between that state and all the possible combinations of the vector of observed variables. To explain this decomposition, let's consider a scenario with 4 observed variables, from Q1 to Q4. We start by calculating the specific mutual information for a particular state of the target variable with just one variable, such as Q4. In this case, this value represents the lowest specific mutual information from a single variable, and it does correspond to the specific causality that is redundant to Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4 about the target variable. Next, we calculate the specific mutual information for variable Q3, which has the second smallest specific mutual information among the individual variables. The difference between this value and the previously computed specific mutual information from Q4 represents the incremental information contributed specifically by Q3. This increment highlights the redundant causality shared among Q1, Q2, and Q3 about the target variable. We continue this analysis across all 4 variables individually. For the variable with the largest specific mutual information, this value indicates the unique causality contributed by this variable. In this scenario, that variable is Q2. This means Q2 provides a unique amount of information about the target variable that is not contained in any of the other observed variables. Next, we evaluate combinations of 2 variables to identify synergistic causalities of order 2. This step follows a similar procedure as the previous one, but all increments considered here are synergistic. We order again all these combinations and find those cases where the specific mutual information exceeds that of the largest single variable specific mutual information, in this case from variable Q2. Those cases will have a positive contribution to the synergistic causality, whereas those with a lower specific mutual information will be 0. Then, we extend our analysis to combinations of 3 variables to identify synergistic causalities of order 3. This involves exploring how trios of variables collectively influence the target variable beyond what any smaller combination or single variable could explain. And finally, the final step is the synergistic causality among all the variables of the vector of observed variables. In this case, it constitutes the synergistic causality of order 4. Note that if we add all the increments together, we recover this specific mutual information. The previous steps were done for a single state of the target variable. Now, we need to apply the same procedure for all the possible states of the target variable. Finally, we calculate the causality components as the expected value of these specific increments of information. You can find more details about SURD in our paper, together with applications of the method across a wide range of scenarios, from fluid dynamics to the analysis of the evolution of species in an ecosystem. Also, all the codes for using SURD are publicly available in GitHub. Thank you very much.